Thank you, Polly. Now we start with shocking new figures that show the scale of the migrant crisis. And the UK granted asylum to a record number of people in 2023. The Home Office confirmed today that 62,336 people were given refugee status or protection following an asylum application last year. And that's an increase of an astonishing 242%. Now let's go through some of those other alarming figures that came out just this morning from the Home Office. A total of 1.4 million visas were issued last year. And that's an increase of 20%. And there were more than 337,000 overseas worker visas, and that's up by 26% on the previous 12 months. Now, we know all about the number of foreign workers in the health and care sector. Well, they got more than 146,000 visas, which was an increase massively of 91%. And the number of dependents coming to the UK also went through the roof. There were more than 279,000 dependents visas, which was up by an eye-watering 80% on the previous year. Now, of course, the former Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, has been a very vocal critic of the government's migration policy, and she's responded to today's figures by saying this: "The Prime Minister must adopt policies I pushed for that would have prevented this national disaster. We need a cap on overall numbers. Britain will be unrecognisable if this carries on. It's not what the British people, including me, voted for." I'm sure many people out there will echo that sentiment. Well, to go through those figures, I'm now joined by immigration lawyer and friend of the show, Harjap Singh Bengal. Harjap, welcome to the show. We voted to take back control time and time again, yet these figures feel like we've totally lost control. In fact, it almost feels like we've surrendered our borders.
Well, compared to the targets set by Cameron's government, Theresa May's government, the figures show that targets are not being met. And in fact, the biggest startling surprise is in the care and health sector industry, where applications are, including dependents, are actually up about 349%. So that's an astonishing increase. However, these people are filling the jobs in the health and care sector, which are needed, but it's the dependents, which almost, well, it's actually more than the actual main applicants coming in. That's being changed on March the 11th. So under the care sector visa, you will not be able to bring your dependent over. And other stuff we've seen is that towards the end of the year, the actual asylum refusal or the grant rate went down from 80% to about 60%. So, and a lot of that was due to Albanians being discouraged to come here and Albanians being removed. However, there does seem to be a little bit of massaging of the figures, where they're claiming that the backlog has gone down by 25,000. And in fact, these claims are withdrawn. Now, you might remember that there was a weird quote by James Cleverly by saying, well, hold on, this is a part of a backlog and these applications are part of a queue. And everyone was going, well, isn't that the same thing? A backlog is a queue. Now, what's happened is what these applications have been withdrawn due to maybe perhaps the Home Office not being in contact or people not being able to be found. And a lot of them, the figures show, have re-entered the system. And so they've joined this new queue, as it was, instead of the backlog. And now the Conservative government will claim victory as in, well, we've got the backlog down. Well, that's no good if the queue is getting bigger. So these figures are sort of astonishing. They don't really meet the targets that the Conservatives have set. And they don't really meet the targets that previous Prime Ministers and the Home Secretaries have set.
Yeah, and then, Harjap, there's the notion of these visas being abused anyway. We've seen this week David Neil, who was sacked as the Chief Inspector of Borders and Immigration. He said sacked simply for doing his job. He blew the whistle on what was happening in the care sector. He reckons 25% of all visas were being abused by workers either coming for a very short period of time into the care sector or not at all. There was an incident of thousands of visas being issued for non-existent healthcare, homes and jobs. And as a consequence, they're also bringing dependents in. And so can we even trust the numbers themselves? Can we even trust where people are going? It just seems like the entire system has been taken over by lunatics.
Yeah, there is abuse of the health and care sector visa. We've seen that ourselves as well, where people have set up care agencies and the workers have come over and found out that the care agencies are non-existent, or the care homes have just told them, go away, we've done our job, we've brought you over. And huge extortionate fees have been charged from these people to come over, up from upwards of £20,000 to bring their families here. And after paying £20,000, these families don't want to go back. So they're going to be assimilated into the system, or they're going to go underground or off the radar. So there is big abuse in that. And the Home Office have been criticised rightly, and the whistle's been blown. Now, the Home Office's, James Cleverly's way to deal with it was to sack the whistleblower. It wasn't like, okay, we're going to take control, we're going to take on board what this person said, and, we need to clamp down. If that's your approach as a Home Secretary, you're not going to grab a hold of this situation. You do not sack the people that are looking out for you and are telling you, look, there's flaws and holes in the system. You actually listen to them. You need more of them people around you, not less. So what's happened is, he sacked that. The abuse is still there. It's still being done. There were more sponsor licenses issued last year than the previous year, which might be a warning sign if they were issued in the health and care sector. And these visas, which people have come over with families, hopefully the government think that they might decline due to the families not being allowed to come over now, and people will just come over on their own. However, that once these people get indefinite leave to remain after 5 years, then they'll be at liberty to bring their families over anyway. So they might just be delaying calling their families over after 5 years. But the abuse is definitely there. The whistle is definitely blown. We need to listen to people like David Neal rather than put them out of a job and add to the government's unemployment figures.
Well, that would be the common sense approach. Yesterday, Hodja, we had Tim Lawton in the studio, and he was saying there are 15 reports that he knows about. He, of course, is on the Home Affairs Select Committee. He cross-examined David Neal. 15 reports that the Home Office simply didn't want to go out there. The huge question is, Hodja, what was in those reports? Why are they trying to bury this information? What don't they want us to know? And the bigger question is, who's actually in control? Suella Braverman spoke out. She's gone. Robert Jenrick spoke out. He's gone. David Neal spoke out. He's gone. And yet the Home Office, the unelected bureaucrats who we don't even know who they are, they remain in office. Who's actually in control?
Well, ultimately, it's the Prime Minister and the Home Secretary. It's up to them to release these reports. Now, we can assume if the government don't want these reports released, that they're probably critical of the government and the way the government is handling the whole immigration system at the moment. We know the system is broken. The Home Affairs Select Committee itself tells us that. We know that successive Home Secretaries have promised the earth and have delivered nothing on stuff as the Rwanda scheme. In fact, the amount of people from Rwanda given asylum actually went up. That's in its 20s now. I think 21 people were given asylum from Rwanda, and this government is claiming it's safe. We've seen Italy do a deal with its nearest country as for a processing centre, Albania, and it's done deals, with that in order to set up processing centres. This country refused to have a processing centre in France, despite France saying, here's a land, set it up, we'll help you set the processing centre up. Government goes, no, we're going to try and send them to Rwanda instead, thousands of miles away where we've got no control over these people. Small boat crossings were down, but we don't know whether that's due to the fact that it's a lot of Albanians were deterred, and it was mainly Albanians that went down in the figures. If you take Albanians out of the equation in relation to asylum claims, then asylum claims only went down by about 3%. So that wasn't a great sort of shift, really. And it's really important to note or to analyse, is the government system working? Why is the government trying to have a cover-up? Why is it getting rid of people who only want to speak the truth and probably help the government? The government, in fact, has employed them to say, well, hold on, inspect our borders, tell us where you're going wrong. And before the person can do it, off you go, son, here's your P45. But we don't want you saying that. We only want you praising us. It's crazy at the moment. We all know immigration is a top sort of issue for the public. It's definitely in the top 3 polling that the public are worried about. And this government and their record over the past 14 years is just not good enough. Removals have only gone slightly up, still less than pre-pandemic levels. So, and compared to 2010-11 records, it's just not good enough.
Yeah, you know what, Harjit Singh Bengal, you always speak common sense, and sometimes you can only conclude that the lunatics really have taken over the asylum system. And the only bit of common sense action in this report today is that the government finally conceded that actually small boat crossings might be down because of the weather, which we told them all along. But look, thanks for joining us on the show. I guess it's always a pleasure.